Hello, this is Alexander Cross, criminal attorney here in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you'd like to learn more about criminal defense here, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Law Offices of Cross and Associates. So we received an interesting inquiry here on our YouTube channel. This has to do with a DUI and domestic violence. Domestic violence, Hayward, accused of domestic violence, Hayward, criminal attorney, Hayward. Let's see. I was arrested for driving the wrong way on the highway. I was arguing with my wife. She was trying to hit me. I then grabbed her by the neck with one hand and left bruises on her. I was arrested. I had drunk some beer. Now I have two charges, DUI and domestic violence. Okay, well, first of all, let's go to the DUI. If you committed any infraction while driving, let's say maybe you were driving badly because of the argument, whatever, the police have the right to pull you over. Once they pull you over, if they see that you have bloodshot eyes, if they see that you have a slurred speech, if they can smell alcohol, well, then at that point they can start with the field sobriety tests. Now, here's the deal, really important. Somebody will say, oh, well, I drank, some beer. I had a little bit of beer. Well, I need to know how much, obviously, because, see, people have this idea that they have to be drunk to be charged with a DUI, and that's not true. Simply, if you have a .08 or more, hey, that's enough for you to get a DUI. Or if you're under a .08, but if the alcohol is impeding your ability to safely operate the motor vehicle, you can get the DUI as well. But just as rule of thumb, just look at this. If you're a man that weighs about 180 pounds, if you've had 3 beers, that's it, you're done. You're over the limit, okay? If you weigh 220 pounds, maybe about 4 beers. 240 pounds, 4.5 beers. I mean, you have to understand that it's very little alcohol is necessary for you to be over the limit. Now, let's talk about the whole domestic violence aspect. The question I have is, okay, yeah, you grabbed your wife by the neck and were squeezing her to the point that you left bruises on her. Normally, that would just be flat out a 245 parentheses A, parentheses 4, which would be assault with brutal force. Hell, I mean, the DA could get creative and go with an attempted murder, a 187/664. But the question I would have is, well, how reasonable was that? Yeah, normally it's not reasonable to be choking your wife, but if you're driving a car and she's hitting you while driving the car, it may be reasonable. I'm not telling you to do this, but it might have been reasonable under the circumstances, because if you're in a panic and you're like, we're going to crash, we're going to die, you can use lethal force to protect your life and the life of others. I'm not saying it was lethal here, but if she's hitting you and you're driving on a freeway and you need to do something to stop her immediately, yeah, that's an argument that I would put forward and say, look, yeah, normally this was a big no-no, but they were on the freeway going 65 miles an hour. She starts whacking him, and he grabs her by the throat briefly just to stop her, because otherwise they're both going to die. That's a good argument. However, your wife, if you outweigh your wife by 150 pounds, and you're solid muscle, and you're just kind of sort of driving on a 25-mile-an-hour road, no, that's not reasonable, and the DA is definitely going to go for the 245A4 as well as a 273.5. Each one of those carries up to 4 years state prison, plus having to do domestic violence classes and all that stuff. At that point, you're putting both of your lives at risk there. So yeah, you have to be very careful with that. But like I said, it depends on the circumstances. Was it reasonable? Were your actions reasonable? Did you have to do that to protect your life and the life of others? Well, that's for the jury to decide. Regardless, if you'd like to learn more about criminal law here in the San Francisco Bay Area, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Law Offices of Cross and Associates. But if you've been accused of a crime here in the San Francisco Bay Area and need representation in court, give us a call at 1-800-862-7677. Once again, 1-800-862-7677. On our next video, we're going to be discussing the case of somebody who was deported, but he had a domestic violence case pending. Domestic violence attorney, Hayward, arrested for domestic violence, Hayward, DUI, Hayward.